everybody, and welcome to the world's favorite youth baseball podcast, Clearing the Bases, featuring Coach Jimmy Filangieri. I'm David Friedman, and I want to thank you for coming along this ride with us. How are we doing today, Coach?
Well, we're doing good today, Dave. Considering that the season is over and, I have that, we'll call it postseason depression going on.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean there. Yeah, season is over. We are in mid-May as we're speaking, getting towards the end of May. And, no more active baseball coaching-wise for us.
Right, and what makes it
for a bit.
What makes it more difficult for me this year is because I'm not coaching in the summer. I'm actually at this point, we would be jumping right into the travel stuff, and I'm not. So I don't know. I'm kind of wondering what I'm going to do with myself.
Well, we may actually have to get together in a social setting and not just talking about baseball with our schedules changing so abruptly like this.
Well, you'll get no argument from me there.
Yeah. So, all right. So let's talk a little recap of our seasons here. So for your league, and even though we coach at essentially the same level, we're in two entirely different leagues. So for your league, you have a playoff system and a championship. I know you made it into the playoffs. I haven't talked to you for a week, just got back from a little mini vacation for myself. So how did things wind up for the season?
Well, not too bad. I mean, we wound up losing in the quarterfinal game, and the boys played well. This season was ups and downs, but for the most part, I can say that every game that we played this year, we were in it. Now, our last game that we had in the playoffs was a little tough because, being in the New York City Catholic High School League makes it very, very difficult because sometimes you have to travel. And we had a Tuesday night game. It was down in Staten Island. It's a 2.5 hour bus ride from the school to get there. And I just felt that the boys were a little lethargic in that game, so it makes it difficult. And again, I'm not making excuses, but it is a distinct disadvantage to have to travel like that, get off a bus, and start playing a game right away. So overall, I would say the season went well.
All right, good. So quarterfinals, I guess this is one of those things where you look back at day one, I guess during tryouts even, I'm sure your mind starts kind of projecting out where you think you might be talent-wise and whatnot. Obviously, you have no idea what any of the other teams have, but you have some idea because you have some history there. So how do you think you wound up in terms of comparing to where you thought you were starting?
That's an interesting question. So, yes, and you're 100% right. In the beginning of the season, I felt that this was a really talented team, which it was, and that we could possibly make a run at it. In our league, there are some very, very strong teams. And I would say during the regular season, we played them very, very tough. I mean, the top 3-4 teams in the league, I think there were maybe, in the games that we played them, there was maybe like a 10-12 run difference between, combined difference between all of those games. So everything was very tight. This year was a little different. And again, we all know that every year is going to be a little bit different than the next. This year, more so than ever, I had players on the team that no matter what I did, no matter how hard I tried, I could not make them understand the seriousness of what needs to be done to become a successful team. And it was very difficult for me. So I struggled with that this year. And I feel that without that, I don't want to say it that way, but without that strain on a team, we'll say, I think the team would have performed a lot better. There were a lot of distractions, let's put it that way.
Gotcha. All right. So, but overall, you would consider it a successful season in terms of what we talk about all the time, player development from both a physical and a mental standpoint.
Absolutely. Again, we'll go back to what I just said about, serious players versus non-serious players, we'll call it. The serious players, I believe that we made great strides with. I believe they understand the game from the mental side as well as the physical side much better than they did before the season started. So yes, I have to look at that as a success. And also, we finished the season with a winning record. We were never below 500 all season long. So that's another plus to the season. And yeah, that makes me happy.
Well, that's great. That's great. And so I know this year you carried a lot more players on your team than what you've had in the past. You want to talk about how you were able to manage that aspect of it?
Yeah, very difficult. There were 24 players, actually 25, but one was a transfer player, so he was ineligible to play, but nevertheless, he was still on the roster, still practiced with the team. And yeah, when you have that many players with only 2 coaches, it makes it very, very difficult. We're trying to, during practice, and we've gone over the problems that we have with practice at the high school, where we don't really get a full field most of the time. Some of the time we do, but most of the time we don't. So it's very difficult. So you have bullpens, you have, guys that have to get in hitting, you have outfielders that you have to work with, you have catchers you have to work with, infielders you have to work with, and there's only 2 coaches, 25 kids, makes it very, very difficult. So you have to be creative. I would say that was another thing that probably hurt us this year by having so many players. But you know what? It's all about getting these players ready for varsity. That's what we want to do. So I do believe, and I don't think that the program is wrong by giving me that many players, because we want to give all of those kids an opportunity to show us what they can do. And you never know. You find a diamond in the rough here and there, like I have in the past. So I think I guess if I had to sum it up, I would say it's a necessary evil.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's good. That's good. Well, hopefully you got the personal enjoyment and satisfaction out of it that we look to get as coaches. And, hopefully you made the impact on the players that we're looking to do.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, I can hope. I don't know that I did. I guess that's up to the individual player whether or not I had an impact. And I'm sure there's kids on the team that I had didn't have a very good impact on, we'll say that, because again, we'll go back to that serious, non-serious type thing. They some of the players it took almost all season to make them understand that, this is not Little League, this is not travel baseball, it's not, we just put you on the field because you need to get on the field because mommy and daddy want you on the field. So it took a while to make them understand that, to use your term, it's all effort, attitude, and merit. That's what gets you on the field. So that was a little difficult this year, making them understand that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm sure having the extra bodies around it's a double-edged sword for something like that, because you certainly have bodies that you can replace a kid with if you need to prove a point. But are those other bodies following along the program at the same time? If you're just switching one out for another and the attitude is the same, then that's not really getting us anywhere.
Right. And this was also a year where I felt like most of the time I feel that by the end of the season, the bulk of the team buys into the culture. They buy into what I'm trying to preach. And this year, I don't think that I got through to everyone. So I think there are players there that still don't understand the discipline aspect of it and how the grind is, and that you have to put in a lot of time. You have to hustle. You have to work hard to earn whatever's coming your way, that it's just not going to be handed to you. I don't think I got through to everybody on that.
Well, there is some of that is, to use a very old saying, leading a horse to water can't make him drink. And, just not to beat yourself up on that type of stuff. Obviously, you've been through this plenty of times before, but it's, I think we can hope that we make, in the kind of the pluses and minuses column, we hope that the plus column outweighs the minus, but we can shoot like everything else. We can shoot for perfection, but we can't expect it, right? So that's something that it's tough. I know we're always going to second guess ourselves on some of the things we could have done or said in this moment or that moment, but we just hope that the overall picture at the end of the day I'm sure that they all got it, even if they didn't take it to heart. And some of them will find out the hard way next year when they go up to varsity.
Right. Well, that's the sad thing. See, I don't want them to get blindsided like that, where if they're not buying into it, maybe they think that what I'm telling them is not necessarily true. And to your point, next year they're going to get a rude awakening when that happens. And it's a shame because, again, I don't want to see a kid go through that. That's tough.
Yeah, but there'll be a little bit of satisfaction, I think, to see it if it's one that, like I said, it just thought they were above it all. And you find out, kind of there's always a bigger fish type of thing. There's your hot dog, A number one, and then you start back over on varsity and there's two kids in front of you on the depth chart, and you'll find out you're going to have to learn what it takes to get moved up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Into a starting role.
Yeah, and I always say to them that you have to understand that this is probably in their careers, it's probably the first time where they have a coach. And again, obviously this doesn't hold true for every single player, but for the most part, it's the first time they're going to have a coach that's going to hold them accountable. That if you don't hustle, I'm watching that stuff, and that there's players that may not have the ability of other players, but they're going to get into the games and get a little bit more playing time because of their effort, attitude, and their dedication to the team. And again, if you're coming from a world where you don't run out of a base hit to first base and your coach just lets it go, and then you come to me, that's going to be a different world that you've never seen before.
Right. That doesn't fly here. And it's not going to fly for the rest of their career as they go through, if they plan on, again, playing at the varsity level, if they plan on playing at college. Although I like to say that, but then I don't know, your feed has got to be similar to mine, or maybe even worse, with videos of these kids at the college level of, just acting like total jerk offs on the field and the coaches high-fiving them. It's bad, but you know what? All we can do is we try our best, right? We put forth our best effort and our best attitude, and we hope that it translates over.
Exactly. So how did it wind up with your team?
So, really, really good. This is my third year. It's my head coach's, I don't know, I think it's technically his sixth year, but we had the COVID year, which I think they had a practice and a half, and it was called. So I don't think we really want to count that. It was our first, so the last 3 years, our first time with a winning record, which was fantastic. And we're not looking to go undefeated. We do try to get every kid into every game. I think I've told you before, my head coach is the fairest coach that I've seen on the field, present company excluded. I haven't really seen you on the field other than one scrimmage. So, and back when the kids were 9, 10 years old. But we work hard to figure that out as we're getting into the third, fourth inning. Every day he's got a copy of the lineup. He gives me a copy of the lineup. We're looking at it during the game. Where can we get this kid in, whether it's a pinch hit situation or it's actually getting into the field or something like that. Unfortunately, we only had one of our subs that we would even have thought of putting in as a pinch runner to get into a game, and he broke his wrist halfway through the season, so he was out. The rest of our regular subs were not fleet of foot, we'll say, because we have a really fast team. We stole, with like 2 games left in the season, I think we had stolen 123 bases. Wow. This year. Yeah. And so that was in like 18 games. We're a really fast team, and not just fast, smart on the bases. One of our kids, he's a big kid. He's probably 6'2", pushing a little over 200 pounds, but an athletic kid too. But he stole a handful of bases because he was smart. He stole third like 3 or 4 times. And it was fantastic. So, we see the development of kids like that this year. That's where, not just in the winning record, but the number of kids that contributed in big spots, us moving kids around. So I guess, we started off the year with who we thought was going to be our shortstop, obviously pivotal role, your anchor of your infield. And that didn't work out particularly well. It turned out he was great at second base, but not great at shortstop. We put another kid in there who had, like one good game and two tough games. And it's like, okay, maybe, we need to find a spot for him. It turned out he was a great third baseman, a kid who we weren't sure, we knew he was going to play some outfield. It was one of those kids that you look at him like, all right, he can play outfield, he can play infield, he can pitch, he can catch, but didn't really stand out at anything. And all of a sudden, like, let's give him a shot at shortstop. And he became our starting shortstop for the rest of the year. We saw some beautiful progression on kids like that. At the end of the year, our school allows us to give out 2 awards generally out of 3 topics, which would be most improved, coach's award, and MVP. But we can only give out 2 out of those 3. And when it came to most improved, we were really, really torn. And you really could have there was like 5 or 6 kids that we could throw into that category, which was awesome. It was amazing. I can't think of another team that I've either been involved in or my kids were on that I wasn't coaching, but obviously I watch these things intently. Can't think of another team that was like that. Right. There was one that stood out a little heads and shoulders above the rest, and but I would have had no problem giving it to another like 4 or 5 kids.
Right.
So that was amazing to see. So it was really, I felt. Now there'll be some recency bias because this year and comparing things from one year to the next gets tough, especially as we get older because of the memory fades and whatnot. But, when you're not in the heat of the moment. So I wound up having to miss our last game. We had 3 games last week, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That was the end of the season because of rainouts. I wound up having to miss the Wednesday game because I was going away and I couldn't change my plans. So the Tuesday game, at the end of the game, I told the kids, unfortunately, this was the last game I was going to be at. And I was emotional about it. I was upset about it. And I don't remember having that. And it can't just be that I was missing one game, right? The last, that can't be the only thing. So the feelings, you talk about it all the time. It's not a word I throw around very lightly. You talk about all the time that you tell your players that you love them and all that stuff. That's never been my style. I definitely have changed a lot over the last couple of years in terms of that. I think a big influence is some of the guests that we've had and some of the conversations that we've had about, and I know you say it every week, and maybe I became immune to it because you say it every week about players don't know how much they don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I love it. The first time I heard you say it, I told you that. I love it. I think it's great. I don't think I lived that. And I think this year, way more than other years I have. And it became very emotional for me, shockingly to me. And, when I told them, we went out on a high note. We beat the team handily the last game. A little insider joke here. The last play of the game was a fly ball to left field. My left fielder, who was out there all the time, he was the best hitter on the team. He was a kid that he might have sat less than anybody else. Our most improved player from last year, and fielding, he was not stellar, we'll say. And I try to impart this all the time, just the basics. Use 2 hands, use 2 hands, use 2 hands. Fly, your outfielders, please use 2 hands. And they almost never did all season. Last play of the game, fly ball to him, 2 hands, nice. Corrals it in. And I was like, the perfect note for me to go out on. It was great. So we all had a good laugh about that. And when I said it, there was a bunch of ahs, and I don't know how many of them were serious and not serious when I said that I wasn't going to be able to be at the next game. I had a player ask me if he could give me a hug, and I was blown away. It was not one of the players I thought. It was one of the players that I was kind of 50-50 on of whether I made a connection with. And I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. I'm sure most of our listeners that have coached know what, when I say that, like, sometimes you just don't know. And like one day you feel like you're right there with them, and another day, like, nope, we're miles apart. And almost brought a tear to my eye. So it was I'm getting a little verklempt recapping it now. So it was. I think that's a testament to what a great year that we had, is that if it brings out that kind of emotion. And I know I'm rambling here, so
Well, I mean, look,
I'll finish up by just saying, successful year, fantastic group of kids. I love them all, and like your own kids, absolutely drive you crazy at different points. But if you didn't love them so much, it would roll off your back more.
Right.
So that's a great testament to them. And no, I thoroughly enjoyed the year, and I'm sad that it's over, as much as for the rest of my life outside of baseball. It's great that it's over, because this year took its toll on me schedule-wise more than others. I don't know whether it be work-wise or family stuff going on, but yeah, no, it's there's definitely going to be a hole starting tomorrow where I don't have to leave work early for the first time in 4 months.
well, I could tell you the emotional part that you're talking about is something that I would say to you that you might have to get used to that. You know, not that it's going to happen every year, because it doesn't happen every year to me, but I could definitely say that there have been many years where that has happened. I've talked to teams at the end of the season, and I've actually had to stop talking because I was getting that emotional, because they're just a great bunch of kids. So I think that's a great thing to hear that from you, that you're feeling that, because again, that means that you made that connection with your players. And like we talked about being transformational versus transactional, it's kind of more towards that transformational side. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and I think about that all the time, the conversation we had with Bill Ekstrom. And I think, as much as I've heard somewhat similar things to that in the past, but hearing it in the way that he said it was just, it hit home to me. It really did. And I think the timing of when we spoke to him was great, because it was before the season started, and it really allowed me to change my focus. And something else that we talk about all the time is never stop learning, right? And at this point, you go back to whatever, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, I would have thought at this point in my life, I got nothing left to learn. And yet then you see the world is still wide open to us. So so thank you, Bill, friend of the show, previous guest, Bill Ekstrom. And I thank all of our guests. Too many to mention here, but let's talk about a new one that we want to start to thank. And I think you guys are really going to love what he has to say. We're going to be on the line here in a moment with Eric Holtz. He is the founder, owner of GameOn 13 down in Elmsford, New York. He runs a facility out of there. He's a coach. He's a mentor. He is so much more than that. You guys are going to learn an awful lot about him with our conversation today. I'm really looking forward to getting into a whole host of topics with him.
Yeah, so am I, Dave. I mean, I've known a lot about Eric over the past few years, and it just took one instant message, "Hey, Coach, come on the show." And, right away shot back. He said, "I'd love to." And I'm really looking forward to speaking to him. He's a local guy, and we've never met. So this is my opportunity to meet him. And, we talk about everything being about developing relationships. And this is a relationship that I'm really looking forward to have develop in the future.
All right, awesome. So without further ado, let's get right into it. And here's Eric. So Eric, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you taking some time to spend with us and our listeners.
Thank you guys for having me. I've been looking forward to this.
Yeah, this is absolutely our pleasure. The funny thing about it, Eric, is that you and I have a lot of common acquaintances, a lot of common people that we know, yet you and I have never met. I thought that was pretty odd. And, it's a pleasure to finally meet you.
No, I mean, my pleasure. I'm always looking forward to meeting other good-looking bald people as well, Jimmy. So, again, my pleasure.
Wow, apparently something wrong with your video feed.
You know what it is, Dave? It's the bald thing. You have the hair, so, us bald guys, we got to stick together.
Yeah, it is a big disadvantage. I will tell you, I feel like I'm getting closer to you every day, though. Just if that makes you feel any better.
Yeah, don't rush it.
Oh, God.
Sad state.
All right, so let's jump into a few things here, Eric. Obviously your coaching career is something that you should be proud of. Obviously, there's a lot of things going on here. You coached at Westchester Community College. You coached at Manhattanville College. Then you went on to be the head coach of the Israeli national team. You've coached USA teams. I mean, this is phenomenal. I really am impressed with that and kind of wanted to know, like, how did all of this start for you? Because it's quite a bit.
So, yeah, Jimmy, my whole life, my whole coaching career, there's never been a plan for anything that I was going to do. I've always just really been passionate about teaching the right way through the love of the game. And, little by little, I one thing kind of just led to the other. In 2004, I started coaching at Manhattanville College while working full-time in the city. And from there, I thought I was going to take a step back and really kind of watch my kids play, as they went through their journeys. And I met someone at Westchester Community College, and I fell in love with him, Larry Massaroni. Actually, I think you know his nephew pretty good,
Yep.
Patrick, and I couldn't say no to Larry. So the next thing for the next 5-6 years, I'm at Westchester Community College. The Team USA and the Israel stuff is a lot more interesting. I had played in the one and only Israel Baseball League in 2007. I was drafted as a player coach at 41 years old and met some outstanding people in Israel, both players and Israel management. The season's over. We win the championship. And that was it. I thought my journey through Israel was done. 6 years later, a gentleman named Nate Fish asked me if I wanted to go back to Israel and coach Team USA in the Maccabiah Games. What the Maccabiah Games are, for people that don't know, it's kind of like the Jewish Olympics. Every 4 years, they go to Israel. And so that was kind of like my excuse to get back to Israel. Israel is just one of the most magnificent countries I've ever been to, regardless of religion or anything like that. The culture, the history, the people are magnificent. So I said yes. We won a gold medal. And before I left the country in 2013, the gentleman that ran baseball and softball for Team USA asked me if I'd come back in 2017 as the head coach. It was then that the GM of Israel Baseball, Peter Kurz, found out that I was coming back to be the head coach of Team USA. I had met him, at this point now, it was 10 years prior. Peter asked me for a meeting in the city, and we sat down, and he said, "Hey, Holtz, I hear you coming back. Would you be interested in taking over as head coach of the national team in Israel?" And no joke, Jimmy, I looked at him, I said, "Do you really have one?" I had no idea that they even had a national team. And he's scribbling down names on a piece of paper, and he said, "Yeah, we got these guys and this guy, and a lot of these guys are like living on kibbutzes." I had no idea what I was getting into. And I said, let me ask my wife if she minds, because that was another commitment of, 3 weeks away for Team USA and another at least 3 weeks away for Team Israel. And my wife, who's been married to 32 years and is just wonderful, said, go ahead and do it. So we win the gold medal on Tuesday. Wednesday, I become the head coach of Israel. I have 5 days to get to know a team, put a roster together, put a rotation together, and we're getting on a plane to go to Serbia. And that's how this whole thing really started out for me in 2017.
Wow, that's incredible. I gotta backtrack a little bit, because you had mentioned that at 41 you played professionally in the Israeli Baseball League. Now, years ago, really, that was when I first heard about you. And I'm going to bring this up because I'm sure you hear this a lot, that you were on the Yes Network with the Montefiore commercial about your surgery and how that all happened. And I thought that was pretty interesting. Why don't you tell everybody how that happened?
So, yeah, I mean, I had a really terrible college experience, Jimmy. I got thrown off my team as a freshman in college because I had to leave and go to a funeral. One of my friends was killed in a car accident on his 18th birthday. And I left the coach a note. This is 1983. No cell phones, no anything. I leave the coach a note. I have an emergency at home. I leave. I go to the funeral. I come back. And he said, Holtz, clean out your locker. You let your team down. So in 1983, at the ripe age of, 17 and a half, everything I had worked for my whole life was taken away from me overnight. And I went 20 years without playing baseball, Jimmy. I was playing softball 4 or 5 days a week. Honestly, I didn't pick up a baseball again for 20 years. I was 37, 38 years old. And a buddy of mine said, hey, Holtz, you ever hear of Yankee Fantasy Camp? And I said, no, I have no idea what that is. He explained it to me. He said, let's go do it. It sounds like fun. And a lot of people there are interested really getting autographs and hanging out with the old Yankees. And here I am at 38 years old. I'm still throwing in the mid-80s and hitting balls, 390 feet out of the ballpark. And that's how I got back into baseball. So at 39, yes, I tore my labrum. They didn't want to do surgery to an old guy, which they considered you back then. You were done playing. That their answer was go play first base. And I said, you can't do that to me. I got so much more left. And I begged them. So 15 years later, honestly, because the surgery, I was 39, and the Montefiore thing really happened when I was 54 years old. They picked up on it. They thought it was a great story, and they wanted to do something with it. So,
yeah, that's really, really interesting.
I had seen a quick interview that you had done on that with your doctor, and it turned out it was a teammate of yours that you were playing with at the time. So that's pretty amazing, kind of small world coincidence thing. Because had you not been that close to him, do you think you would have pursued it still?
He's like a big brother to me to this day. We've known each other now 30 years. It wasn't would I have pursued it, Dave. I definitely would have pursued it, but I might not have been able to talk the doctor into doing it to an almost 40-year-old guy. So,
Gotcha.
Dr. Levy was amazing. And I had to kind of sign a deal with the devil. I promised him I would never pitch again. And, then I end up lying to him because, I pitched until about 2 years ago. Till the age of 55, I was playing in like 3 or 4 different baseball leagues, from collegiate leagues up to, age appropriate stuff. And I pitched till, the last game I played.
Wow. That's amazing. That's amazing. All right. So, we're going to be jumping around an awful lot here today. I can see that, which is fine. I think, again, you just, your background being so varied and so interesting. I think it's just got to be the nature of the beast here. So, let's talk a little bit about your rehab from that. If we can jump into there, we'll get back into the coaching, just because it's something near and dear to my heart. I just rehabbed my shoulder basically 4 or 5 months last year, and I'm throwing much better, much more pain. I won't say completely pain-free, but much closer to pain-free than I was for the last 20 years. So, but at that age, so I'm sorry. So you were how old when you had the surgery?
39.
So 39. So having to take essentially a year off, right, of throwing or throwing for real. I'm sure you did some.
Throwing for real, correct.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
You have to. There's no replicating a throwing motion, right? It's one of the most unnatural things that we do to our body, which is why so many people have problems with shoulders and elbows. So taking a full year off and then coming back and playing again, you want to talk a little bit about that. And I think the focus has got to be on just the mental side of it.
Oh, the mental side is we'll get into that. But my biggest thing with working with kids, I'm going to add in kind of the coaching and the rehab together. Mm-hmm. When I'm 57 years old, so when I was in my 20s or early 30s, they didn't know much about the game and how to take care of players. So it was reactionary, right? It was wait till you get hurt, then let's do something about it. Instead of being proactive and learning that, you know what, if I'm throwing and accelerating, well, I need to build up my scaps to be able to decelerate. We didn't know stuff like that back then, Dave. So for me, everything I talk to young kids about is putting the work in to take care of your body. If you want your body to take care of you, you can't just show up and play or show and go. Like, there's so much work that goes into it. For me personally, yeah, I had the surgery. I hit the PT head on. I will tell you, no joke, I did all of my band exercises for 4 to 6 years after my PT was over. So at 41, 42, 43, I was probably throwing better than I was in my 20s because everything about me started getting bigger and stronger. I still play third base, and my arm is probably better at 57 than it was in my 30s because, again, I still work out, right? I still want to play. I still want to do these things, and I expect to be at a certain level. And if you expect to be at a level, you got to put the work in. For me, that is probably my greatest message as a coach is put the work in. Put the work in. You can't cheat the grind. You can't cheat any of the process. And more times than not, if you do the work, you're going to get results from it. And, you know, I'm kind of a living, breathing example of that because, yeah, I came back and like I said, Dave, you know, I wasn't throwing in the mid 80s anymore, but up until 53 years old, I was pitching in the WRWBL. I mean, which is a collegiate baseball league, and effective. And I was getting guys out and competing. I had both of my sons on my team, and literally competing against college guys. And had I not done the work, there's no way I could have done that.
Yeah, it's definitely all about doing the work. It's something that we try to hammer home to our young players that by just coming to practice just for a couple of hours every day is not going to make you a better baseball player. And one of the other things that you said that really hits home, and I want to emphasize, is we spoke to Alan Jager a couple of months ago, and Alan talked about prehab versus rehab, and you just nailed that home because it was basically the same thing that he said, and how important that is.
See, but Jimmy, it's important today. 30 years ago, it was ignorance.
Yes.
Because we didn't know. Today, it's laziness. Because if you know and you don't do it, then shame on you. Because every piece of information is out there. If you don't know, you can Google it. You can get on YouTube. You can go on Google. You don't need a coach to specifically work with you if you have the drive to do it and get better doing what you do.
Right. Very, very simple little concept really is put the work in. And what I tell my players is, again, it's a very simple concept that we're trying to get 1% better every day. So there's 1,440 minutes in every day. 1% of that is 15 minutes. You know, if you're trying to correct something with your hitting, give me 15 minutes on a tee a day at home. That's all you have to do, and you're going to get that 1% better, just as long as you're working on the drills that we're giving you to work on to correct whatever problem there may be, and you're doing it right, and you're going to get better.
I live by that 1% better, Jimmy, as a father, as a grandfather now, as a business owner, as a ball player. Think about what happens if the whole team buys into that. And everybody's getting better. How much better does the team get from the beginning of the season to the end of the season? Exactly.
Couldn't agree with you more. So another thing that I wanted to talk to you about, let's jump into a little bit about your facility, GameOn
Sure.
13. You know, I've known about it for many, many years. And give us a little bit of idea. You know, what are your principles? What's your mission statement? What are you trying to do there?
My mission statement is I want to take kids in 2023. I want to instill my passion and my love for this great game of baseball. And I want them to have fun, learn the mechanics and the fundamentals at an early age so that they don't quit by 13 and 14 once they get to the big field. I could care less about wins and losses. I want to teach the game the right way. The wins and losses happen on their own. You know, for me, again, and this is where I start feeling a little bit older, but the instant gratification world that we live in makes me nuts. I don't like the measurable. I have them because I have to have them, but I don't like them. I don't care what an 11-year-old's launch angle is. I need them to learn how to barrel up a baseball, man.
Yeah.
I don't care how hard an 11-year-old or kid is throwing, and you'll see fathers sitting there with pocket radars, and it makes my blood curdle, man. And the beauty about what I do is I'm not a school, and so I'm not being paid by taxpayers. So I've been known to throw some people out of my program from time to time, and pretty often because parents ruin so much of this stuff for kids, and it's unknowledgeable parents that think they know better about what we do every day. So for me, GameOn 13 represents everything I love about baseball, softball. I have a 15,000 square foot facility where we train baseball, softball, and then we have a full-time strength and conditioning program for all ages, including adults, not just baseball, softball players. We train professional tennis players, rugby players, NFL players, and it's become a home. It's very family oriented. I love the kids. I love the families. You have to be a good kid from a great family to be here. If you're not, I don't need you here. I don't need any bad apples. And like I said to you prior, because I created this and this is my world, I can control that. I'm not an athletic director. I'm not a superintendent of schools. There's no one paying my salary that I have to be worried about. And I'm very happy in what I get to do every day because I get to try to change children's lives and teach them how to create and achieve realistic goals for each individual athlete that walks into my door.
And that is, and I mean, listen, that's what everybody who listens to the show should be striving for, the type of coach that they should be striving to play for, the type of facility they should be looking at getting into. And I want to talk about a little bit more about what you do there. In addition to the teams that you run, you do the individual trainings, you do group trainings, you do lessons. The two big things that caught my eye are and touching base on what we were just talking about with the shoulder health and whatnot, the injury mitigation and the motion evaluation. You want to just talk a little bit about what you guys do as far as that goes? Because that's huge today.
So, Dave, when I talk about being older, we have a young lady here now who played here and played for Pelham High School, went on to have a great college career. She's now a doctor. Her internship was with the New York Mets. Her name is Frankie McCauley. Frankie has studied how the body works, studied with the New York Mets doctors. Frankie runs an injury mitigation program based on how your body works, what the proper mechanics are, and what we need to do to keep your individual athlete safe. There is no cookie cutter because every athlete is different. Every body type is different. So different people work differently than others. And this is literally breaking it down by athlete and then putting programs together based on what their needs are. That's one. Proteus Motion is an incredibly cool and very new system that just came out within the last year and a half. Basically what it is it's a machine. It's a 3D machine. 3D meaning you can move in any direction without being limited, let's say like you are with a bar if you pull it down, or bands or that type of thing. And it measures your full body's strengths and deficits. And getting an evaluation on the Proteus Motion, we can then, and again, as I say, every athlete is different. We can see what deficits you are. You may have weak ankles, and that's going to cause you to not be able to turn correctly and rotate correctly. So we'll get each individual athlete measured on the Proteus machine, and then we'll be able to kind of compare them to other athletes their age throughout the country who is measured on this. We'll show them the percentile that they're at, and then what can we do to help them work on their deficits. And, let's say they're strong, but they're not quick. We'll work on quickness type stuff. If it's the opposite, we'll work on strength because, they have quick twitch muscles, but they need to work on muscle mass and that type of thing. So these are things that, again, because I hate being or looking at different places, nothing to me should be cookie cutter because every athlete is just different.
I agree with that 100%. I'm going to back up just a little bit because something that you said before kind of hit home with me when you said that nowadays people are looking for instant gratification. And I just had this conversation with actually our freshman coach the other day where he was saying that I don't understand why we're teaching stuff to these players now and I don't see the results right away. And I said, the problem is that you're not giving it time. Okay, we have to wait. I know that the things that I'm teaching my players at 14, 15, 16, sometimes I don't see that stuff actually show itself until 2-3 years later when something in their head clicks and say, oh, now I understand what Coach was talking about. So I know that parents look at it the same way where Coach is teaching my kid how to hit a certain way. Well, why isn't it working like next week?
You know, it's such a great point, Jimmy. You know, like I say, and I said before, in 2023, everything is about AI and, you know, hit tracks and TrackMan and launch angle and exit velo. I don't care how hard you swing. If your head and your front side are pulling off a baseball, you're not going to be able to hit a baseball in the game.
Exactly.
So when you come in here, to me, it's no different than playing a video game. Well, stay home and do that. Go play MLB The Show and be Manny Machado for the day. But if you're Eric Holtz, I need to see the best way to be successful for Eric Holtz. And for me, that just starts out with the proper mechanics and the learning to track baseballs, pick up rotation, stay in the middle of the field, and barrel up baseballs.
Right. And have an approach. That's another thing.
Well, I mean, you know, the approach is all those things I just talked about, right?
Right.
Is where is my body in space and time? What am I trying to do when I get to the plate? Yeah. And you know, and again, this is where I start feeling really old, man, because I'm not old. You know, at 57, I'm still like full of piss and vinegar. But I feel old because everything is about what app's on my phone. Hey, look at that. No, man, let's go back on the field and go put some balls in the gap. Let's go gap to gap and show me that you can keep your path the same way. It's frustrating, Jimmy. It's frustrating.
You're preaching to the choir because I'll tell you what you just said about gap to gap. You know, players will come to the field and they want to put the war paint on their face. They want to put the arm sleeves on, you know, the glasses on top. And my thing that I tell the players is take the sleeve off, get that crap off your face, get the glasses off the top of your hat. You want to impress somebody? Hit doubles in the gap. I guarantee you people will notice you.
And most coaches and most guys that are recruiting today, they know those guys with the war paint and glasses on the top of their head. They may look like ball players. Let's see if they have any game.
Right. Yep.
It was funny. The beginning of our season this year, we had quite a few new players. I'm a JV coach. We had quite a few new players that come up from our modified program in the school district, and when they found out, I don't know what, I guess they're just used to tournament play or whatnot, but they couldn't put the war paint on. They were only allowed in I don't know if this is our section or a New York State rule or whatnot, but you could only have one stripe underneath each eye. Nobody on the team even wore any at that point. So, you know, and I got to tell you, as a player, I always hated it. As soon as I put it on, I had it on my hands. I was putting it, you know, I would touch my uniform. We had white uniforms. Sure. I had it all over me. So I think I put it on once and I was like, I'm never doing this again. It was ridiculous. But you see these kids come through with all this stuff. It's just, I don't know, it's just funny that if I can't be all decked out with it, then I'm not going to wear it at all. I'm like, all right, so it's zero functionality. It's purely for the aesthetics. Good. Let's get rid of it. We don't have to have this conversation again. We haven't talked about it again since like the first practice of the year. It's been great.
That's awesome.
So another thing that I actually read that you said, and it really caught my attention because, Dave, I'm going to steal your thunder here. Dave ends every one of our shows talking about attitude and effort. And something that I read that you said is what I live by is attitude and effort are the two things we control in our lives every day. So there is no reason to have a bad one of either. And that came right out of Dave's playbook. So I wanted to bring that up.
Yeah, I mean, listen, for me, when dealing with children, young adults, I don't live with them. I don't know what's going on in their house. I don't know if they have a happy house, happily married parents, divorced parents. I don't know what's going on. Is there enough food? Is there not enough food? Do they have enough? But I truly believe unless you have a chemical imbalance, and kids do, and they need medicine, you are in control of your actions every day of your life. And those two things, those two words for me are the most important words in the dictionary. But it's not just baseball, right? It's not just baseball, softball. I choose to wake up in a good mood every day. I choose to have my feet hit the ground, and I just can't wait to embrace the day. Why should I show up and give 50% of anything? Nothing in life is that easy where I can put in 50 and get back 100. So if I can teach, my platform happens to be baseball, softball. But hardly anything that I teach is about baseball, softball. It's about life. It's about overcoming. It's about relationships. It's about work. It's about dealing with superiors. Those two things are two of the only things that I control. So yes, to me, guys, those two words in every aspect of your life is more meaningful to me than just about anything. Yes. I have t-shirts that say it, GameOn 13 with effort and effort and attitude and huge with that message.
We may need to talk a little bit about copyright infringement there, because that's something I've been using for a gazillion years. I talk about PMA, positive mental attitude, something I learned when I went to a baseball camp. I'm going to say when I was 13. I'm 52. I think when I was 13, I went to it. It was a gentleman that ran it was Vince Pica. He was an old-time scout. Actually, Bernie Williams was at the same camp that I was as he got signed by the Yankees that year. Our careers diverged just slightly after that, unfortunately. But I've been using that. I've been using that ever since, on and off. I mean, as a teenager, it's kind of hard sometimes to keep that as yourself. But it's fun. I just used it on Friday. I interviewed somebody at my work, totally sports related. And the person asked me, well, what are the people? It was a good question as an interviewee. What are people that are successful at this position? Like, what do they do? And first thing I thought of was it's effort. That's it. If you're going to put in the effort, you can be successful. And then I get into a little bit of the attitude thing. But yeah, the number one thing is effort, and you're not going to get the effort if you don't have the attitude. I mean, that's kind of what you're.
I'll tell you, David. And I have no problem talking about this. It's very personal. I was diagnosed as a senior in high school as learning disabled, and for me, people try and use it kind of as a crutch. Other people, I have this and I have that. I need more time. For me, that's horseshit, man. I'm just going to outwork you. You may be smarter than me. Naturally, I'm just going to outwork you, and it's not even going to be close. And that was a decision I made, as like a 17, 18-year-old kid. And again, I impressed that upon my 3 children who went on to have really, really good careers at the college level. And I'm not more or less proud of any of my kids. But my daughter, who is a pitcher, is now a pediatric oncology nurse at Memorial Sloan Kettering. She's dealing with children with cancer every day of her life. And the lessons she learned and the intensity that she brought to this and the effort she put in and the attitude, the caring is, and this is her telling me, is now at 26 years old, what makes her so really, really good at her job.
Yeah, that's really interesting because, again, what you said about outworking, that there's no way that anybody is going to outwork you. So I preach this day in and day out to my players. It's a very, very hard concept for younger players now to understand because they've never been put in that position where they had to really work hard. And I think that the way they view hard work and what is actually hard work are really two different things.
I mean, hitting off the tee for 20 minutes is really hard work, Jimmy. I can only do it once a week because I'm really busy with video games and so I only have a little, but I put my work in.
Right.
Well, did you really?
Yeah. And that's exactly what I mean.
I hate to quote, because I don't want Dave to, now say I'm stealing something else from him. But there's another one that says, don't be upset with the results you don't get from the work you didn't do.
Yeah.
I don't use that one. So go ahead.
Well, I mean, on that, because that just reminded me, obviously we follow each other on Facebook, and I see all of the stuff you put out. And yes, I saw you put something like that out, and naturally I shared it. I liked it because it's spot on. It's like what I have on my Twitter page is if you want it bad enough, you'll find a way. If not, you'll find an excuse. Very simple.
Oh, 100%. But again, everything kind of ties back to who I am, what my goals are, what's allowable in my house, what do my parents allow? Never mind my coaches for a second. What do my parents allow? That's a big frustration to me in 2023. Parents aren't parenting. They want their coaches to parent. They want their teachers to parent. They're too busy. They're running around, Be a parent. Do your job.
Right.
Lay down rules in your house and let your kids know what's acceptable and unacceptable here so that when they go to a coach, they don't look at you and I like we're crazy because we demand effort.
Right. But,
yeah, man, it's a wild time for me. I mean, and youth sports and dealing with young kids is tougher and tougher for me. Oh God, I probably shouldn't say this, but the next team I want to coach is a team of orphans.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've heard that said before. And it's true because what you just said about parents, and them wanting coaches to discipline and teachers to discipline. But if you don't do it the way they think you should be doing it, they're going to be upset with you. Meanwhile, they want you to do it, but you got to do it my way. And that's impossible.
Absolutely.
So we've been talking with Eric Holtz. He is multifaceted, but I guess primarily right now we'll talk about being the owner, the head coach at GameOn 13. That's down in Elmsford, New York, very local to where a lot of our listeners are. Of course, we are essentially worldwide, but if you are in the southern New York area, definitely a place that you want to check out. So let's talk a little bit more with you. You're setting up your programs at the facility. Obviously, you can't be hands-on 100% every day involved with all the teams and all the players that you have there. So can you talk a little bit about how you've gone about selecting your coaches that you've hired and the process kind of that you go through with that?
So 5 or 6 months a year, I am here 7 days a week. I am involved. I am hands-on. I want the kids to get to know me and feel comfortable around me. Again, Dave, I've been blessed to have coached, Manhattanville, Westchester, my children. So a lot of guys and ladies that work here are now adults that I coached. I have, some people here, some coaches here that are in their mid to late 30s now that I coached at Manhattanville College in 2007. And they're phys ed teachers, they're firemen, they're policemen, whatever. And because of the love and passion that they still have, they want to be here and they want to be involved. For me, I look for passionate, caring, understanding people that understand, that buy into and understand what what my principles are. That I don't care about winning. Yeah, there's a million trophies, and I don't care about them. I want every kid to understand what it takes to be part of a team, to be part of something bigger than myself. So in a lot of cases, if they're not ex-players that I worked with, I look for educators. This may sound crazy. I look for educators, and I look for special ed educators who have the biggest hearts and empathy and love and patience to do things the right way. So for me, my standard always is, could they have coached my kids and would I have been happy? So that's kind of, at the end of the day, how I measure whether they can be here or not. Like I said, I now have a 30-year-old who pitched at Bucknell University, and my daughter pitched at NYU, and my younger guy played at Columbia. Would I have been happy? Because if I wouldn't have been happy, why would I put other people's children with someone that wouldn't have made me happy? So that always comes back to, how I finally, make a decision or grade people.
Well, that's my feeling. Is one of the hardest things to do now is find good quality baseball coaches. There's not a lot of them out there. And, like you said, that understand all of these things that you just mentioned. One of the biggest things being the relationship that a coach has with their players. You need to understand that you need to develop a relationship with these kids. And another thing, you've said it several times, you've used the word love. Now, I will literally tell my players, I love you, bud. I'm here to help you. I love you to death. I'll do everything that I can do to help you. So, again, to find people that understand that got to be very difficult. I mean, you have many
Jimmy,
teams.
I'll tell you, it's not easy. I feel like we could talk forever. Coaching in the Olympics, right? I coached at a really high level. I had guys on my team like Ian Kinsler, Danny Valencia, Ty Kelly, Scotty Bertram, Ryan LaVarnway, big leaguers, right? It goes beyond the love. I need to understand what makes you tick. I need to understand who you are and how you deal with pressure, anxiety, because being a coach, I need to understand if we're up 1 in the 9th inning, do you want the baseball in your hand? Or flip it, I got a runner on third with down 1 with 2 outs. Do you want to be in the batter's box? What makes you work? What makes you tick? So regardless of the level, I needed to know that at that level. So that starts at a very young age. I need to know what buttons I can press with Jimmy or Dave to make them comfortable in an uncomfortable situation. Can they handle it? For me, that's such a big part of coaching. Personally, I hate seeing coaches yelling at players because I've been doing this a long time. I've never seen a guy walk someone on purpose, make an error on purpose, strike out on purpose. I mean, I can't understand for the life of me getting yelled at for that stuff. So for me, if I see something bad, I take notes, or if it's really bad, I'll put my arm around a kid in the middle of a game and say, hey, bud, I would probably do it this way next time, and here's why. So that he can learn from that, stay loose, stay relaxed, instead of tightening up where he's going to make another mistake. And that, to me, Jimmy, is such a big part of coaching is understanding who I have and what they're made of.
Right. So what I take from what you just said is a key word that I believe should be used all the time, and it's the word trust. It's a matter of trust. Can I trust you to bring you in as a pinch runner and do what you're supposed to do? Can I trust you to come in and get the bunt down when I need you to get it down? And I agree with you 100%. Don't get me wrong. I will get on players for things such as missing a sign, the mental things. Those are things that I will, because that's a lack of focus. You make an error.
You and I could be the same person, Jimmy. In my life, I've only yelled 2 or 3 times, and it was for that stuff, right? Not knowing the situation 30 seconds after I just told you, or missing a sign down 1 with you're the runner on third base. Like, yes, but the physical stuff, it's like, it's like an abused kid syndrome. You yell at them, they get nervous, they're going to mess up again. If they feel the love and they have the understanding of what I did wrong and how to fix it, then we're helping the next generation of baseball players figure it out. And those are the kids I want working for me.
Right. And how many times have I said to a player, hey, bud, come on, I believe in you. I believe that you can get this done. Okay. Now what you need to do is you need to believe in yourself.
I say it all the time. I mean, and you can find one of my posts. If you don't believe in you, how do I believe in you?
Right.
Right? Because I'm like a shark that smells blood if I'm coaching against you. I'm a big body language guy. I can pick up on it. I smell it. I see it. And if I can see it, man, the whole field sees it. And I'm not saying to go out there and be cocky, but I need to be confident in who I am, what I do, and the work that I put in to put me in this position. And the last part of this is, at the end of the day, it's just a game, right? Win or lose, it's just a game. The sun's going to come up tomorrow. So I can't make this bigger than what it is. It's a game. If I lose Game 7 of the World Series, it's a game. I'm going to be okay. My family's going to be all right. How I process it and I'm able to kind of get rid of it and move on really, ends up being who I am. And then who my players become. And, it's kind of like a trickle down.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, there's there's still hundreds of things I think that we could go back and circle back to that we just went over. But yeah, I mean, that was some of the stuff I wanted to get into, is more with the facility and what you're doing with. I mean, listen, I would love to talk about your experience with the Israeli team and going overseas and all that stuff, but I think that's...
To be honest with you, the whole Olympic thing is a show in itself, because it starts in Serbia in 2017, how we got additional guys, Bulgaria, Lithuania, Germany, Italy in 2019 to get to the Olympics, and then COVID, and, that really truly could be its own thing.
The basics of our program is youth development. So that's why focusing more on your facility and the things that you're doing there. I guess, Jimmy, unless you had something else chambered that you wanted to go through, I did one other question that I would go through with you. So sort of a new topic, but you've talked about it. So you've talked about you're coaching obviously on a at least partially or full time on a ton of the different youth teams, but you also did coach your own kids as they were coming up. And a lot of the people that I talked to, obviously most of us got into coaching because our kids were playing. I know, and again, I've told this story before, I didn't really have the intentions of coaching until I saw when my son first started playing, I saw what his coach was doing, and I said, oh, well, I certainly know more than him. So, and then I just did hours and hours of research, because even going back, so my oldest is 22. So you're talking about going back 15, 18 years ago, YouTube was a thing. And I was able to get on there and start looking, maybe not when he started, maybe within a couple of years though, but I was able to get on and just get all these different things. So you would talk about a little bit of the difference of how you coach your kids versus coaching other kids. Because the joke that I've made when you talk about like not yelling at players, and I've said that, and I go, except my own kids, of course, because
all right. So here's the deal. Like you, Dave, I worked in the city. I was in business for many years, and my 30-year-old is 5. And I get off the train, and I'm in a suit and tie, and have a full head of hair like you, and I show up to a t-ball practice, and like you, I'm not happy with what I see. I'm not happy with the way This guy's talking to the kids. 5 and 6, man. You got to get down on the ball. You got on the line. So
yeah, that's going to work.
I wait until practice is over. And I said, hey, I'm Eric. And I won't use names. And he introduces himself. And I said, I watched at least half your practice. I saw the way you were talking to the kids. I said, could you show them how to get down on the ball? When was the last time you were able to get down on a ball? And it wasn't totally appropriate, Dave, the things I said to him, because I wasn't happy. And the yin to my yang, my wife of 32 years, says, babe, shut up or get involved.
Good for her.
And that is exactly what happened. I had no intention of coaching. I had no intention of doing anything. And 25 years later, here's where it culminates, right? Coaching my own were fun. I was smart enough to know with my second and third. My first one, I needed to step away from coaching him when he was about 12 because he didn't have exactly the same passion that his father had. And I needed to do some soul searching myself as to why that angered me so much. So I thought the best thing to do was step away. Now, my best friend, or one of my best friends, Bob, said, that is the most incredibly selfish thing I ever heard. You stepping away is unfair to the other 12, 13 kids on the team. So here's what we're going to do. You'll coach everybody else, and I'm going to coach your son. And that was a game changer for me because I really wanted to step away from my oldest, and I ended up not. And it worked out. And then and I got more into the mental part of the game. And I understood that there needed to be a separation of church and state. They didn't always want me to be their coach. They wanted me to be their father. So my daughter, who is, one of my favorite human beings on this planet, we would drive home from a softball tournament and I'd go, hey, babe, I love you so much. You suck today. What are you going to do about it? You know what I mean? And we were able to have fun with it. But if they were struggling with stuff, I would have one of my guys here work with them because, again, I want to go home and be daddy. I want to go home and give them a hug and tell them I love them and not talk about it. So in high school, when they played, and in college, the same. I mean, truly, you didn't know if I was ever there, David. I literally was the father sitting over the fence in right field. I didn't want them making eye contact with me. I didn't want them playing for me. We'd go home after games, and unless they asked me something, hey, Daddy, did you see something in my swing? I would just say, hey, how was your day? Let's have dinner. Because, again, the separation of church and state was so important. And as they got older, they understood that, of course, Dad would never do anything to hurt them. And one of my coaches could tell them the same thing I was telling them, but it came out of my mouth. It was annoying to them. By 14, 15, 16, they all came back to me and understood that I knew what I was talking about. I was knowledgeable about the game, and I was only there to help them. And my younger guy is 24 now, right? He finished his career at Columbia. He went on to play a year of pro ball in Europe. He's now in the mental health field. He's coming in at 10:30 to hit with me. He's 24 years old because now it's just bonding. And he still plays, and he's actually trying to play for the Israel national team going forward. So now it's bonding. At a young age, I think I was kind of walking on eggshells once I understood the separation that was necessary to keep a happy household.
Well, it makes sense. It's like anything else in life. I mean, you have to learn, and a lot of times we learn by, I hate to say it in this way, but making mistakes and having to go back and look at and say, okay, what could I have done differently, and blah blah blah. If you just put the blinders on and move forward, then you're going to ruin both. You're going to ruin their love for the game and your home life. So,
and it took a lot of introspection of myself and soul searching, on my own, to understand that they weren't me. And that was okay that they weren't me. And like I said, they all went on to have really good careers, but they figured it out when it was right for them, not when it was right for me. So that was a tremendous game changer.
Yeah, and that's key. Like you said, when they figured out that it was about them, it's not about you, and that's huge. One
of the other things, Jimmy, as I said to you, I've been playing my whole life, and I'm playing softball. Long story short, I have a full knee replacement. I then broke my hip, and so Father Time is kind of catching up. But I wasn't a father trying to relive my stuff through my kids. I was playing with them. I was still doing my own thing. So it wasn't like I was the last pick in the kickball game at my middle school, and I wanted better for my kids. I was still like a 12-year-old man. I was still had the love and the passion. I was playing. So it wasn't like, I want you to be me. I wanted them to be the best version of themselves.
Exactly. Well, look, we could keep going. I can touch on a million other topics. Eric, I can't thank you enough. This has been great, coming on and talking baseball with us and giving your perspective. It's been fantastic.
Jimmy and Dave, listen, to get a chance to speak to passionate guys that have the same beliefs as you, please don't ever thank me. I mean, this has truly been a pleasure. If you want to revisit anything going down the road a little bit, I'm always here for you. You know how to get a hold of me. And, at some point I'd love to, meet you guys in person and say hello. But once again, thanks for having me. And this was great.
Yeah, well, as say it all the time, everybody's time is valuable. The fact that you're willing to just take some time out of your day with the types of projects that you got going on is amazing. In terms of meeting you in person, I'm thinking of signing myself up for a couple lessons. I'm coming back to play. I haven't played in 22 years. I'm coming back to play this year. Got rained out yesterday for my first game, so still TBD on that. But I can't thank you enough. This has been great. There will absolutely be a part 2, and I'm thinking probably a part 3 somewhere down the line, because there's just so much more that we need to get into with you. You are the type of coach that I would want my kids to play for. As a going back to, again, circling back to something we talked about before, how you pick your coaches. So unfortunately, mine are aged out at this point, but Jimmy's got some grandkids that are starting to run around. So we'll have to see about getting them down there. But again, thank you so much for coming on. We will absolutely reach out to you again. We'll get all of your information in our closing here. But how do people get a hold of you? What's the best way to get a hold of you if they want to get their kids down to your facility?
I mean, they can go to GameOn13.com. They can email me at ericgameon13@gmail.com, and they can find me. I'm not hiding from anyone. I'm a pretty visible guy. I return phone calls and text messages, and like I said, it'd be my pleasure. And again, thank you both.
And you're primarily in the States these days, right?
I am primarily in the States these days, working on a bunch of different projects and stuff.
Good.
After the Olympics, I stepped down after 5 years as the head coach to really pay more attention to my family, my business, the kids here. But I still do stuff with them, but I'm here.
Okay.
I'm here.
That'll make it a lot easier for
I'm in the
our
country.
people. Good.
So you had mentioned that possibly meeting in person. I got to tell you, because I'm in your area constantly, and I can tell you that no less than a dozen times I said to myself, I'm going to take a ride over to the facility and introduce myself to Eric and meet you in person. And something always came up and I just didn't. But, we'll talk about it later. But I want to know when you're there, because, again, I'm in Westchester every day. Right.
I am usually here during the week from about 7:30 till 4 o'clock this time of year, because every day I'm at a different field watching the kids that we train and the kids that play for us. So I'm at different high schools every day. But, from November till April 1st or so, I mean, like I said, I'm here 7 days a week, Jimmy. I can DM you my cell number. Just shoot me a text. Let me know where you are. And I'll make it a point that, if I know you're coming, obviously I'll be here. David, where do you coach?
I'm up in Beacon, New York, is the high school that I coach. Jimmy and I live right up here in Dutchess County, so we're not that far away.
Got it. And Jimmy, you're at Step, obviously, right?
Yes. Yep.
I'm a big Richardson guy.
Keith is fantastic. Let me tell you something.
Yeah.
One of the best things that ever happened to me was when they hired me as their JV coach, and the things that they've taught me. Again, I'm 60 years old, and I've told Keith this a million times that I'm not one of these guys that think I know everything. I feel like I'm still learning. And
Jimmy, I love you for saying that. I tell the kids every day at 57, I want to get better. I want to learn every day. I want to get better. I want to get better in everything I do as a player, a coach, a father, a business owner. And if I can feel that way at 57, man, you could feel that way at 14. It goes back to getting 1% better every day. Somehow, some way, I got to keep learning because we don't know everything about anything.
Yeah, and I mean, David said it in one of our earlier shows that he can't possibly imagine that at some point in his life he just said, well, I'm just full. I'm full. I said, I've got all of the knowledge I need. I'm full.
Crazy. I'm telling you, when I'm traveling, I'm reading. When I'm home, I'm watching. Yeah, I mean, I'm just never happy with where I'm at. I want to continue to learn, and if I can do that, like I said, there's no excuse for the kids not to.
Exactly. So,
well, you guys enjoy the rest of your rainy day, and I look forward to catching up with you guys again soon.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Eric. We'll definitely talk soon.
All right. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Eric. I'll be in touch.
Bye-bye.
So there we have it. Eric Holtz with GameOn 13 down in Elmsford, New York, and so much more. What'd you think, Coach? I don't, I always ask that, and I don't think I have to ask that this time. I know this guy is right up both of our alleys.
Well, let me put it to you this way, Dave. I feel that if our listeners did not feel his energy, and he actually used the phrase while he was talking, he said, I'm still full of piss and vinegar, man. That came through loud and clear.
Yeah. He, I don't think it would matter what topic that you could get him on. You could probably ask him about vinyl siding, and he would be jumping through the screen, ready to go about it. But I mean, great guy, just a wealth of experience that you guys have to take what he says to heart. There may not be a better example that we've spoken to in over 2 years of doing this in terms of, the message that we want to get across to our people.
Absolutely. And I mean, obviously he's been very successful for a very good reason, because his beliefs are right there where I believe they should be. And people are going to pick up on that, and you're going to be successful. He treats people well. From everything he said, it's kind of like what I say all the time about having that love for your players. Now, I know he didn't necessarily say that, but you could hear it in his voice how much he really cares about the player and helping the player to get to their ultimate goal.
Well, yeah, and plus you see, if you go onto their website, you'll see how many of his trainers and coaches that worked there he coached. All right. And, I don't know how many people are coming back to the source if they didn't like the source.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about that. Again, it's a testament to his ability to, we'll say, build those relationships with his former players. And obviously they look up to him because they wouldn't be back if they didn't. And what better way to get your coaches? I mean, we talk about all the time how hard it is to find baseball coaches. Well, there you go. There's a great recipe. Train them, as players, and then train them as coaches.
Yeah, if you grow them from the weed and grow all the way up like that, certainly takes a lot of the searching and the hunting and pecking for that off, and a lot of the guesswork off, because you know what that person is. I also just I love his conversations about injury mitigation. This is following up from a couple guests ago with Alan Jaeger. Same message there of let's not wait until we get hurt. let's actually prevent the injury from happening, and maybe we can let's prevent the injury to happen so that we can keep the careers going as long and strong as possible. I love that message. I love the technology that he has down there. I've checked it out in terms of looking at some stuff online, and I'm serious about getting down there myself to get the evaluation, because I think as an older player, I think it could certainly help keep me in the game a little bit longer. I don't know how many years I have left at this point in terms of the ability to play, and had I had those types of tools as a younger player, I gotta believe the last 30 years would be completely different for me.
Yeah, I'm sure. I mean, it is so important to do that work to prevent injury. And Eric even said it on the show. He said that if you're not doing it, because it's all out there and everybody knows that, hey, this is what we should be doing, and if you don't know, you could look it up. It's just such an important part of it to. And again, I'll go back to Jaeger's term, and I think it's spot on. It's prehab versus rehab. Let's do the prehab so that we don't have to do the rehab.
Absolutely. So, I mean, as soon as we're done with this, I am going to be contacting my attorneys at the firm of Hagen and Daz to talk about the old, copyright infringement on the effort and attitude speech. But besides that, GameOn13.com is his website. Just that's the first step to get out there, see what their facility is all about. You can catch a couple other interviews he's done on YouTube that I've seen out there. Really interesting guy. He gets into his background with the more in terms of being able to coach the Olympic teams and coaching over in Israel and whatnot. And if you're not going to listen to him, who are you going to listen to?
Yeah, very good point. I mean, go out there, look him up. And if you're, in this area, even if you got to travel a little bit, an hour or so, whatever, to go and get trained, I can't think of a better place to tell you to go to.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think that's a good final note for our episode with Eric Holtz. I want to thank everybody for tuning in. Our listenership has just continued to grow. Our numbers are off the charts. We really appreciate it. Continue to like, review, share the show. Give us a review. Give us those 5 stars. It helps build us up. The more people that get to hear us, the better guests that we can have, and the better that our shows will be for you, and the more impactful they'll be going forward. So thanks, everybody, for that. And we'll just finish off with something I know, obviously, Eric's a big believer on: 100% effort, PMA, positive mental attitude. Great things will happen. Final thoughts, Coach?
Yeah, again, like I said, great energy coming out of Eric. Just listen to what he has to say. He will, just by his message, he will make you understand what this is about, that there is a lot more to this than just going to a facility, going through the motions, and becoming a better baseball player. There's a lot of work you have to put into it, and I don't think that there's a better message than what he's putting out there. And the other thing is that, along with like almost every single guest that we've had on this show, I can't stress this enough, that all of these guys, Eric included, they all understand that people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Thanks, everyone, for listening, and we'll see you on the next one.